Kicking off from where the last panel sort of left, and there's so much spoken about real estate, strategy, green initiatives, and the inspiring, speech that Mr. Berry gave on what we ought to do and what we ought to contribute. I'm extremely, privileged today to be moderating this session on ESG in commercial real estate, our march towards a greener world. And before I take a minute to introduce you to the panel, let me set the context of our conversation today. The previous panel spoke about, how some said that they're looking at certain strategies. Some said, Laila said that we don't have enough data point. And to sum it up, it's really all organizations today are in a journey, post-COVID, which is evaluation, experimentation, and then evolution of what is going to really happen to commercial real estate. While that being a constant, and each organization to themselves with where they are, I think most organizations are evaluating and experimenting on what they want to do with their real estate strategy. A step back, and if we look at pre-COVID, how things were, generally, commercial real estate, I think it was a function of headcount. You added people, you were growing. So, for the real estate professional, cost was a function of rent and volume being directly dependent on people. And for the developer, revenue being a function of rent and volume. All of us have enjoyed phenomenal growth over the last 30 years since evolution of ITES in India, and the way, the volume growth that we've seen. I think what has fundamentally changed over the last sort of 30 months is we've hired people, all organizations in this room have gone ahead and hired people that's not translated into real estate, and that is into volume. So cost or revenue as a function of rent and volume has got distorted, and that volume now is getting replaced by quality. And that is where, while organizations may have or will evolve their strategy, but I think the boardrooms have already decided that they have an objective of sustainability or net zero, and in that journey, quality is being, ESG is a huge function of that quality. And that is our topic of conversation today. Commercial real estate, you can't deny, how important ESG and sustainability today is. And our topic today is focused on three aspects. Number one, ESG's influence on user experience. Number two, long-term operations. And number three, how would it create investor value? Let me take this moment to address introduce my esteemed panelists today. Amit Grover, all the way from Delhi, very, very passionate about design, development, of course, a superb deal maker and experience of having worked with, various geographies across the country. Captain Srinivas, Chief Executive Officer at Cornerstone Properties, again, varied experience. He's been on the CRE side, having worked with various corporates, and then, of course, on the development side. So it will be great to hear from Captain. Then we have Vinod Ugare, Director Real Estate at Volvo, 15 years of experience, manufacturing, office, management of offices, and of course, leading the initiative on sustainability at Volvo. Then we have Dinakar Doraikannu. He manages real estate at Bloom Energy. Again, 15 years of experience, multiple functions, various roles. And then finally, Shantanu, who's now, like me, a Bangaloreite, but otherwise from Delhi. Over 15 years of experience, been on the buy side with AIG, and now with Brookfield, managing their real estate for South India. So that's the panel. Let me start, and I'll try to keep my questions very concise and short so that we can hear more from the panelists. Let me begin by asking this to Amit and Captain. How does ESG create value for an investor and a corporate end user?
Yeah, thank you, Viral, for introduction, and thank you everyone for bold enough to be in this session. I think that's the resilience of the Bangalore which reflects here. So thank you. I think, what we've been hearing about ESG today has a far more deeper impact and presence than we've been hearing about 2 years back or a year back. And there are three stakeholders which are making this big difference. First is the realization at the macro level, which is at the country level, where the representatives of the countries have taken an initiative to make the change for the climate change, and there's a sense of responsibilities which is taken by the countries. The next level is the global heads of the various larger corporations who have taken that responsibility to make an impact and take the responsibility on the climate change. Now, everything which we are seeing it today now is a trickle-down effect of the ownership taken by the countries and then the global heads of the larger corporations. And therefore, the conversation started at the board of the various organizations of taking ESG as a core driver, as a key performance driver for the organizations. Now, so there are two parts which is driving the real estate world. One is the occupier side, where the mega corporations decided that their future acquisitions of offices or industrials or warehouses would be driven by ESG as a parameter. The second is the investors, which is a big impact that the global investor community, whether it's the funds or the private equity, have in a big way, or even the banks for that matter, have decided in a big way that their future investment strategies would be based on ESG parameters. So whether that means the investment in equity or investment in REITs in various factors. The other would be the governance part, which will come from the state governments or the country governments, that how they would start gradually acknowledging and will start regulating through certain bylaws. Now, there is an act, which is a draft bill, which is in US, which has been placed for discussion, that how to make mandatory a certain level of environment management at the buildings, which means whether it's energy conservation and water conservation and other factors, and it's up for a debate. The very fact that it is up for a debate between the stakeholders, wherever it settles, it will make it mandatory for some of the existing buildings to be upgraded to meet certain environment norms. So there are, two drivers which are impacting at the business level, which is the investors and occupiers. And there is a macro factor, which is the governance level, which the governments are looking at it. I think that will broadly define the landscape of how the real estate will change, both as a pull and a push. The pull will be that, okay, you want to qualify for investments, whether in REITs or private equity. Your portfolios have to be ESG compliant. And the push would be in certain gradual manner that will become a must-do, as a survival must-do. I think that will be a broader landscape, and I'll be happy to talk about more.
In fact, I want to say that I want to just look back. The buzz around CSR 15 years back is what you feel about ESG today. And I'm stealing this line from Tim's presentation. We were all ambitious about ESG. Now there's clear action. So there's tangible investments being made by the demand side and the supply side. So, Captain, your views.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. Great to be here after a long time. I think some of us are chatting that it's nice to see people face to face now after long hiatus. So thanks, Viral, for the introduction. So, I'll just back up a little bit and go back to, like you said, CSR was a flavor of the month earlier. Now, ESG is probably a mandatory tool that we are all working around. Now, taking a step back in 2015, when the 17 SDG goals were created, with an action, call for action for 2030 for achievement. Lofty targets, we know where we are. A couple of years of hiatus in the last few years have led to put some brakes on us. However, recently, like every country has putting out its mandate, even India has put out its mandate, very long targeted one, like other corporates that you see on media. Even the country has put out a very lofty goal of going carbon neutral, net carbon emission in 2070. Now, trickle it down, and this is at the COP26, which is at Glasgow recently. Trickle down to the country, right? And Indian real estate, particularly the ones that affect us all. It is, probably the top three amongst FDI inflows, employment generation, and inducing, the country's growth. So clearly we have a role to play here, a significant role to play, and it all boils down to each of those parts, E, S, and G. And, we'll talk about it a little bit more in terms of while we are very, very closely connected on the E part and the S part gradually, but there is a big impetus being given on the G part. And now Amit alluded to that fact briefly in terms of how we're looking at investments coming into India. Now clearly, 70% plus companies or investors or private equity players globally have been surveyed to say that they're going to be using ESG screen filters. Now they're not just limited to compliance and risk, which used to be the call at that time, but it's also furthering down to talking about the management, the culture in the organization, and the diversity in the organization, the ability to call back in terms of what they're providing back to the environment without distorting the environment. And also looking at, is it planet over profit or profit over planet? So there are a lot of impetus being given on this, and I think at commercial real estate there is a huge opportunity which we have started off in some time back. But considering that the urbanization is still on a forward path today, especially in India, I think all of us, including the real estate industry, have a huge role to play in terms of how we can minimize, or organize ourselves better in terms of asset utilization, energy, as well as making lesser impact in terms of the constituent ancillary industries like steel and cement in creating a circular economy. So I think there is a way forward on this, but it's a good beginning. We are on the, almost everybody, it's no surprise to companies when we talk about ESG. Everybody is reflecting, some of doing a green wash, but somebody really mean to do it. So I think that's a journey in front of us.
And just to supplement what you're saying, Captain, I think the risks that we are faced with today with respect to climate, the physical risks that we are faced with, and then there is the other element is the regulatory risk, but more on the physical risk, I think is just absolutely necessary, and especially here in Bangalore, our city, and it's happened in Bombay a few years back. Most recently, it happened with London, with the increase in temperature, etc. I think it becomes, it's a situation where you don't have a choice with what you're doing. And real estate, by the way, contributes about 40% to carbon emission. So let me bounce off a question to Shantanu and then both our occupiers, Vinod and Durai. With respect to, employee is such a big component, and there's talent, war for talent, etc., which is we're in the midst of this right now, unique situation in the world. And I'm sure all your organizations have ESG goals, net zero targets. How and what are you doing, Shantanu, with respect to enhancing employee value proposition while we are in a dynamic, liberated working environment where we are trying to get people back to work? What are you doing, or in your view, what are you seeing with those changes to enhance employee value proposition?
Sure, and thanks for the introduction and for the invite to be part of this panel. Just before I kind of address that question, I think a statement that I would like to make is that ESG is a profitable business. If we understand that, then we are not doing this for compliance. We are not doing this for risk. We are doing this for profits, right? And the reason for that, we are in real estate and we're construction, so we like acronyms, and especially if it starts with RCC. So there's something that will say is RCC, IPP. So it covers about why we do it, how we do it, and what's the result for it. Why we do it is because we need resilience in our businesses, and we need conservation. How we do it is basically by engaging with communities, and that results in being inclusive, right? You have to be inclusive, take everybody into account, results in productivity and ultimately profitability. Now, if you take that path of a journey, right? Today, I think it's very important that ESG is looked by employees as well, right? Because what the pandemic has done is has made people realize that they have to think about their purpose, right? Purpose was not a big word, say 5-6 years back, but today, individual purpose, the purpose of work, and the purpose of organization. Everybody is talking about purpose. And when you look at this paradigm, I think if you're not doing enough in the ESG field, right, it will be very difficult for us to attract the right kind of talent, right? And office space is just one part of it, but I think everybody today wants to work in an organization which is doing good for the world, right? So all of these parameters become very important. So wellness is a very, very big parameter, today. How they reach offices. If you ask an employee today, they'll be traveling by EV, right? I think there's a sense of pride in them, right? So that is one, one aspect. At Brookfield Properties, what we have been trying to do is, we have set ourselves certain targets, whether it's about, becoming net zero as far as energy is concerned, net zero as far as water is concerned, and net zero as far as waste is concerned. And those are the three things that we are really targeting for. We've already achieved some of them in some of our properties. We work in an environment where we acquire properties, so we have to kind of work on them, invest on them to get them to that level. But yeah, I think these are the three aspects that we are really.
On a lighter note, forget in the professional side and employees. At home, my kids tell me I want an environment-friendly Ganesha idol. So we'd like to hear from you, Desai, on what have you implemented, what are you doing, and how are employees sort of. I'm trying to hear that piece on what are you hearing from employees. What is your return to work?
Okay. First of all, good afternoon to everyone, and thank you, Satish and Viral, for having me on this panel, and CII as well. Before I get into your question, I wanted to highlight a few points here, which is the change should start from us. And I've seen a lot of changes here. Earlier, we used to keep plastic bottles. Now there is a glass bottle with nice pudina inside, flavored water for us. And we used to have a lot of papers on the tables on the agenda. Now it is on QR code, right? So these are the changes that really going to help us, in the long run. Whatever the changes that we are going to bring in now is going to impact us in 10 years down the line. Not immediately, but 10 years down the line, it is going to impact us a lot. And then when it comes to the initiatives that we bring in, we need leadership support, right? So the leadership support is the major thing in, whenever we are implementing something new. So I would like to highlight, a few of the leaders whom I have worked with, ever since I started my sustainability journey. Laila, gave me the sustainability initiatives when I was working with Volvo to take it from her. And, my other boss, Mr. Indushekar, he is here. So he uses metro even today. Okay, when I asked him, you have all the luxury to buy all the Audi, BMWs, and why you are still choosing to come on a metro? So he says, no, I wanted to contribute my part to the society. So like this, each individual, whoever is contributing to the society is going to impact us in a greater form. And then the celebrities or the ambassadors play another role. You refer the Ronaldo incident. He just moved the Coke aside, and 4 billion impact to Coca-Cola, right? So that is the kind of impact the celebrities can bring. So to answer your question directly on the initiatives, While I was working with Volvo Group, I take the privilege, I know I'm stealing some points from Vinod, I hope you don't mind. And, we have initiated a lot of initiatives like, how do we reduce our groundwater extraction? And, we saved, as on today, we are close to 1.5 crore liters of groundwater we have saved. So that is the biggest achievement by replacing the, by introducing some, treatment system in the water. And also, we stopped, sending our waste to landfills, and we started buying the green energy from outside. So these are all the some initiatives, which.
So I want to ask, how is the employee responding to this?
Yeah,
Are they asking? Great.
So recently I joined Bloom 6 months before, and we had this opportunity to celebrate World Environment Day. So that time, whatever the initiatives that I've been driving in my previous organization, I want to bring back here. So when I brought all these points like removing the plastic bottles, removing the plastic stirrers, and implementing green initiatives, providing plants. So I got a good response from all the employees. Employees were like, we were waiting for you to join Bloom. That was the kind of response that I've received. And nowadays, everybody is aware of this environment crisis and the climate change that we are facing in this current world. So everybody is, very positive and, cooperative in implementing those.
Phenomenal. Great. Vinod, your views?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Viral, Satish, and Mr. Indu Shekhar for having me on this as a part of panelist. To start with, yes, ESG. So, what are the contributions, what we are taking, especially what employees talk about the ESG now? So, if I look at it over the past COVID situations, what we have been there, I think when employees bringing back, I think many of the organization were talking that how do we bring employees back to office? And also the sustainability part of it, what we are doing part of the employees. Now, one is during COVID situation when they are coming back, how the office looks. Whether all the hygiene factors are covered, that's a main important environmental activity. So what are the precautions we are taking employees to be coming back to office in a safe manner? So that's where we started with that. So seeing that all the areas in terms of the one is facility area, how we are taking care part of it and maintaining it at our offices, and also that employee gets back the confidence of coming back to offices from working from home as it was there for the longer time. And many of the sustainability what employees talk is, I think now implementation of many of the aspects like in terms of the environmental especially on the air conditioning we talked today. I think what are the improvements we have been doing in terms of the air conditioning. We have been having a traditional offices during COVID time. We sit and talked how do we look at the environmental, bringing the nice, very good fresh airs and what are the environmental factors which I think we can employ the employee experiences. I think with that we have started with many of the office of our renovations and upgradations, and in January we have inaugurated as well activity-based office as well. And during that time, the environmental factor, which is the major contributor, was on how the air conditioning control and fresh air mechanism bringing. So those and also the offices which we have brought into the more energetic. So that also plays the important role. Dustbins. Earlier in offices, every workstation used to have a dustbin. Nowadays, if we see the campaigns what we are developing, part of the organizations, the communications what we are giving to the employees, I think there is an employee also interest coming back to the fourth facilities organization to us saying that how can we look at these all employee friendly, making it, removing the dustbins, having the common areas, and so these are the environmental activities what I see. In addition to that, I will talk about the environmental, going to the net sustainability zero water ground. So where in our factories, the plant, the Hoskote plant, so we're creating a pond so that water table increases and we use the water table without having the bore wells and increasing the solar power PPA. So today we are 60% and with end of this year we are going to be 95% plus.
Wow.
That is the initiative what also we have taken part of the having the green energy to us. And also in coming to the offices, also landlord contributions also is required in terms of the support. Either you look at the chillers, efficiencies, bringing back more on the green concept of the buildings. I think major landlord also, I think we have to work together with the handlers.
Let me bring in the landlords, and Shantanu mentioned that it is profitable. I'm sure Amit has a view and Captain has a view on it. but really occupiers are asking for what they are asking. Do you see that they are willing to pay a premium for this? And is there a payback around what you invest into your physical assets?
So, a couple of things. First is, it is not it's not fully right to say that the occupiers will have to pay completely for the ESG.
You can record this.
Absolutely, you should, right? And that's because, like I said, I stand by it. ESG by itself is a profitable business, right? And it's about how you look at it. What are your parameters? Where you are capturing the savings, and where what is the duration of or the horizon of that investment that you have to make. So today I think we all want to ensure that our ESG goals are met, right? But why, even if the occupiers do not want to pay a premium for it, I think we get the premium from the fact that we get better investors, we get better bankers who are willing to lend at lower interest rates. So those are big factors as well, right? And I think it will be about time when occupiers, willingly or unwillingly, will have to, right, say that I want to go to a developer or to a building which is meeting better ESG thing, because that is impacting my ESG, right? That is impacting my cost of borrowing. That is impacting my return on investments. Now, if you make all of that as a correlation, right? I think it is then going to be dependent upon how the profits are being shared. But clearly, I think there is the pie is there for everybody to take a share of, and everybody would get benefited out of it. There would be a premium that the developers may get, ultimately, if a lot of people, don't do this, right? There will be people who will be left out. Right?
So what I infer is that they will take a premium. Eventually, what he rounded off to say, and
Absolutely.
and Amit, let me ask you into the specifics of what Shantanu mentioned, that there is going to be, this is the way forward. But what are those elements that you're bringing about, given your passion for design development? What are you seeing? And then, Captain, if you can
Sure.
throw some light.
A few examples so that you can relate what decisions which we are making. So today, if anyone of you in the audience have heard of what is the green power requirements, so mandatory requirement as per government law is 3% of the power should be green power. Now, you'll be surprised that we operate a project in Chennai where our green power, as we speak from last 1 year, has crossed 50%. 40 megawatt is the power consumed in the project. 20 megawatt comes from windmills, right? When we had to make that decision, we were the first in the city and the first in the state. So to get the green power to the project, we had to invest on the physical cable, because government had not provisioned how to get the green power, because the windmill is obviously outside the city. How do you get to the project? So we had to invest on the cable coming into the project and the whole infra around it, because we were the first one in the city. Now, it did had a small impact on the power per unit which we charge with the occupants. We got no resistance, right? Because we were doing it not to make profit, but we invested on it. We're trying to recover that additional investment and spread it over a 10-year. When you spread it over a 10-year, that investment, the incremental cost is nothing. Recently, we had to take a decision in Hyderabad. It came as a policy offer from the government on a first come first basis for moving for a green power. It had a limited quota. We didn't have that much time that can we do a tenant survey to take a consent of everyone. We did our math, and the cost increase was turning to a cost impact on CAM was 2.5%, right? He said, okay, let's go for it. We know our tenants, they will pay for it. Now, in this room, if you do a survey and said, okay, from tomorrow, I'll give you a green power in your campus at 2.5% increase in CAM, quite likely the answer will be yes, let's go for it. So we're taking a lot of these decisions back there. Now, coming to the design side, I'll tell you what's the big impact which is happening. So all of us, maybe about 5 years or 6 years back when we do these RFPs for independent campuses, the requirements used to be, I mean, I hope I'm using the right terminology, that was 1.2 watts per 100 square feet. Now you'll be surprised, the last building, which is the DLF Cyber Park in Gurgaon, was designed at zero 0.9 at the project level. So how do you achieve a 0.9 is that everything which has gone into the electromechanical equipment of the building has been made to make it functional effectively. And then we worked with our tenants and said, guys, we are investing in these equipments which will run the building efficiently. You also invest in interiors, and we ensured that 100% of our tenants during the interiors did that LED lighting and all that stuff. So at the 30% at the project level is reduced. Now the debate which we are having in the new project is that 0.9 is becoming 0.8. So when you compare with a 1.2 versus 0.8 at a project level, you've reduced by a substantial 1/3 of the power requirement. So this is the big impact which is happening, and then the only way it can happen is then we create a lot of education with that tenant that, we getting a platinum LEED certification for the project. I mean, you do these following guidelines. We issue the guidelines for a tenant interior, said you do this, and then you will also can aim for a platinum for your interiors. And that partnership is working very well. I'll give you another example. I'm sure you're aware of you spoke about the design parameters. Now the real estate the architects can do a fabulous work in making the real estate sustainable. I mean, one of the examples which I always take, it's whenever in the communities where you're living, imagine a new office park comes in, and as a resident, you figure out that is it creating value or is it becoming more of nuisance because you're adding traffic to the whole thing and making it discomfort. Now, next time you're in Gurgaon, do visit a project called Horizon Center, which is in middle of DLF5, which is a residential colony. Now, every resident has benefited from that project. You know how? Because on the weekends, the whole amenities area which we created, the restaurants, about 25 restaurants which we created, now they become accessible to the restaurants. And the parking for the office is used for 5 days, Monday to Friday, and on a weekend that becomes the parking accessible. So the same real estate is getting utilized for alternative use on a weekend, and therefore creating a kind of a facility for the residents to access that. Now this is how the architects can create a social benefit, which is the S part of the real estate. So I'm just giving relevant examples around it. The more on the social side is the wellness for the employees. I mean, post-COVID, we invested pan-India in kind of retrofitting our AHU filters. The ASHRAE standards globally asked for MERV 13. We did pan-India, we did MERV 14. What it does to the employees is it certainly improves the indoor air quality, and then it is measurable. So we installed all the, kind of measuring devices, and now it's visible to every employee in the office. Okay, this is my outdoor air quality, this is indoor air quality. So I think what will also emerge in this whole landscape is the sense of measurement, where someone who's paying, and likewise that answers the question, why would a customer pay? The customer has to have a visibility of dashboards, and what is the impact am I making? How is it that what developer has invested in these parameters, how is it reducing my power? How is it improving my indoor air quality? And so that in their respective ESG reports, these measurement statistics can be reflected, and then it becomes a win-win.
So what you're saying is that, and I'll go back to Vinod and Dorai. Well, let me first get Captain's view on this aspect. I mean, there's a lot spoken on this, but if you want to give it a shot, and then I want to just go back to the corporates on this.
Sure, I'll keep it short because Amit has gone to a lot of detail on that. So I think 2008, circa, we would ask the same question when landlords want to do green buildings, right? Whether tenants would pay for it, or would they be interested in paying that incremental value? And you know where we are, 15 years later. So I think we are looking at a similar repeat of a scenario which is good for the developer as well as good for the end user. The other aspect is in terms of ESG requirements and the demands on the companies. We talked about the ESG investing part. So I think the requirements, I shouldn't use a strong word like a compulsion, but there is a strong desire on both sides of the table, right? The occupiers, like Amit talked about, they have an extension from where the developer leaves. And developers would want to do it because of their own reasons for operational efficiency, as well as for being able to draw the right kind of clients, employees, as well as the right kind of funds. So I think the need is pretty mutual, and people are, and you talked about the governance aspect. If the leadership quotient of most of these companies on either side is aware and acknowledging the requirement to comply with ESG, I think this is a journey that we will see very soon.
So, and there are certainly leaders and laggards in everything that is happening, but I can tell you that in London, Sydney, Melbourne, whether it's an investor, lender, or an occupier, average 10 to 15% premium in the market today, simply because there's a supply deficit of such kind of buildings. But Dora, you mentioned that there are specific things that you're looking at it, and we've got these guys on the dais, right now, so we can talk about what are those things that will really help you to build. Because there is, what I infer is that there is an objective which is coming from the boardroom, globally, that we have net zero targets, 2030, 35, or whatever it is. And then there are action points. But most importantly, there's a change of attitude which we are seeing, whether it's at our home or whether it's with the younger generation, how people are looking at it, and that's the transition. But specifically to action points, what are those things that you would seek from developers that would really help you in this journey?
Yeah, the main point is on the environment piece. Okay, you just have to start with the negative screening, which is like the items which are harmful for the environment. They should stop it at the procurement stage itself. They should not think about.
And I agree with you that purchasing overall,
yes,
consumer behavior overall will move in that direction.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And apart from this, the certain part of the government also has to, take necessary steps. For example, they have banned the plastic bags. Okay, if you go to any shop, you get to, see that plastic bag hidden somewhere.
Correct.
And he gives that without, anyone's knowledge. But when I inquired with him, why are you giving this? He was like, no, I don't have any other option than this. If I have to go, I have to increase your price. Then when you go back and check, certain times the government officers comes and finds him. Instead of that, the government should ban the guy who is manufacturing the plastic bags. So
Fair.
those kind of initiatives really help us.
Vinod, your view?
Yeah. So coming back to the landlords, at which I think we have been very closely working with landlords and what the new technology is coming up. If you look at the offices currently, daylight everybody talks. When designing, I think architects plays a major role during that. Daylight's coming in. So during the design, if it has been taken that how much daylight can be pumped into the offices. So that nowadays new generation offices, when they daylight, the employees come back to us saying that, can I get a seat next to my window? Everybody asks for that. So during initial stage itself, how we can look at having the, I think Amit mentioned about it. Aisha is following on the all double filtration of HUs. So at initial stages itself, how do we look at those aspects and better efficient chillers and building the more efficient buildings, LEED certified buildings. Nowadays, I think most of the landlords are looking at LEED certified buildings. I think this is one of the major criteria which I think tenant is also looking at it currently. And also one is newer buildings, one is existing building. What do we with existing building? When we are occupying, how do we have to look at it making more energy efficient? Changing of the AHUs filters or looking at the chillers, making it more efficient.
So in your existing real estate, would you pay a higher rent for them upgrading the asset?
It depends. So,
If it is really impacting the employee
and Amit will be able to justify to say how you got benefit.
yes, I think existing buildings also major plays a big role because nowadays new generation buildings we are talking, everybody is talking, but the location also sometimes matters, which client may wants to stay in the same location. So because of the non-interaction of the businesses, where connectivity, collaboration currently exists, so moving out to the other challenges will be there. How do we more sustainable the current buildings as well? I think that's also one of the key factor. So I think instead of new generations, the current also has to be looked into it more consciously. That is what my view.
Fair. You wanted to make a point and then we'll open it for questions.
So I think when you talk about design, and Amit alluded to the point, I think the very first place where you can, design, when you're designing the building, if you're capturing less heat, if you're capturing less water, that's a lesser problem to solve, right? And that can be done at a design at a very passive level, right? I think you talk about daylight, but in this world of curtain wall glazing, etc., if you put that facade on the south or the west side, you're gone, right? You'll put the blinds down, capture the heat, increase the air conditioning load. So clearly, I think passive design plays a very big important role. So what we did very recently is that one of our clients wanted us to upgrade a arrival lobby. It was partly air conditioned, right? We took the challenge in saying that we will not make it air conditioned when we upgrade it. So 100% of the lobby will not run on air conditioning. It'll be done through passive cooling. It'll be done through passive design, right? So first, there were a lot of skeptics about it that I am asking you to upgrade, right? You're degrading, you're taking air conditioning out, right? And that's the mindset. So we said that no, we'll still stand by it, and you see the result of it. And when they saw it, it was like wow, right? And even in doing that, we enclosed spaces. So it's not that we're keeping the spaces open, right, from a security or from an enclosure or from an experience perspective. So today, I think design has evolved to such an extent, right, that if we follow such practices, we'll be able to eliminate the very resources that we have to deal with later as to how do we treat it or how do we reduce it, right? So that's the way forward, I would say.
Okay, before I open it out, two quick fire questions for all. Are you able to quote your ESG, sustainability, net zero targets, like close-ended answers or what you're doing for your organizations? If you can state just the number or year or what are you doing, just.
Yeah, if as I said on part of environmental on the net zero water, so 60% currently we are on the solar power of PPA, and end of this year we'll look at 95% plus. So that's the one, and in addition to that, overall on office upgradations, what we are doing it. I think everywhere we talk about first start with sustainability and recycling the products. So in that also what we are looking at from 8 to 10% overall how we get part of the sustainability or environmental part of it. And one nice example I'll quote from the employee. So recently when we have built the cycles, part of the wellness, so few employees came back, when you are next time looking at having the cycles, can you look at having the lights above generating through our cycle pedaling? So
Wow.
that's I think everybody is looking at more environmental and sustainability. Employees also coming back. I think so much of ideas and initiatives. And we have run the quiz recently also. There are so much new ideas we got. So we take a feedback. So whenever we are developing next offices, upgradations or new office we are developing it, we try to take the feedback so that what are the areas where we can look at in addition to that part of our initial design.
Great.
These are the
Thanks. You want to quick?
We are a solution provider for the net zero. So in terms of energy, if you want to become net zero energy by so and so year, we have the product. So we are from the solution provider side. And with respect to our own organization, we are planning to keep all our operations net zero by 2030.
2030.
Yeah.
Great. Shantanu?
So, Brookfield globally has, said 2050 is when we'll be net zero, but that's also because we have, heavy industries and a lot of, those kind of assets infrastructure where, getting the full net zero is difficult. But specifically to the region which I take care of, I think we'll be 100% net zero on energy by 2025. We'll be 100% net zero on waste by 2024, and we'll be 100% net zero on water by again 2025. So we have kept 2025 as a target for ourselves in this region to be net zero effectively, and this is so there's a lot of capex that has been outlaid to achieve that, And I think the benefit of all of that will accrue to the occupiers, not just from the points that we get and we share, but also there are, like I said, savings and benefits that will accrue, savings in CAM, etc.
Great. Amit?
Yeah, so I think, we also kept targets, but actually what we're doing is far ahead of targets. Now, the entire DLF offices portfolio, 40 million square feet, is LEED certified as we speak. The entire 40 million square feet is net zero water as we speak. So these two achievements are already done, even though we kept a target
Phenomenal.
on a later day. And now, as a country, we should be proud of that. We've been told by USGBC that the DLF Cyber City Gurgaon is the first business district in the world to get the LEED certification, and that's how it came in atomic time. So definitely we're going rather ahead of our targets.
Captain?
Well, we are a work in progress company, so we don't have portfolios like these guys have. But I think our current focus is to include that in every aspect of what we are building out now, including sourcing land, which is something that my company does, and that's also one of the aspects which is very keen in terms of how we source land, what is the disruption that we are doing while we are sourcing land, and how do we convert it with the right partners to create the right assets.
Great, thank you. Open for questions. We have about 5 minutes, if there were any. Yes? Sorry. Oh, I think he's taking it. Sorry. No problem.
Hi, my name's Arun. You hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay? My name's Arun Namani. I'm one of the co-founders of Rakana Energy. We're a leading supplier of, solution supplier of ESG and net zero compliance solutions. So this is very interesting to see the panel. You have occupiers and customers, corporates. So one of the things that we hear when we go in front of developers or corporates with the ESG solutions is, I'm from UP, so there's a very typical Indian question that is asked after they listen to everything and the whole presentation. They'll say, "Kitna deti hai?" How much will I save? And that focus itself is, I think, one of the challenges that as developers and customers, we have to think more holistically, What are the other benefits? Savings is actually a byproduct of everything that what I've heard on the panel said. But in practice...
I tried my best to get that answer.
Yeah, really. So I was just curious, at what point will this mind shift happen? Where do you go basically from a compliance-based mindset to a competitive advantage mindset?
Right, agreed.
This is open to anyone on the panel.
Maybe I can take up. So I can tell you that there's a big mind shift which is happening, right? So I think kitna deti hai or the ROI is a question which is there in every boardroom. It's like same as you buy a EV car, that's the question you'll have, that your upfront capital investment is more and is your operating cost lower? Because net it has to square off somewhere. It could be over a longer term and may not be in the first year, right? So I think increasingly, the responsibility which we have towards our stakeholders, and likewise to our customers, if we go back and tell our customers, okay, there will be a capex which we would do, and then, we kind of take a amortized return from you, likewise to our boards, if we go with the capex, everyone, we have to reflect the ROIs. So therefore, all supplier partners, let's say if it's an operating chiller and say, okay, I'll replace the chiller, this is your capex, but you kind of take the return over 10 years, it works. So someone has to own that ROI, and that's the conversations we are happening. So the way we are accountable to our boards and investors for that ROI, likewise, I think the suppliers would have to be accountable, and that's how the whole journey of upgradation as well as the new buildings upgrade will happen.
Yeah, but on the competitive advantage bit, I think I mentioned at the beginning, I think volume has been the key driver for commercial real estate in India all through and through. And I think that is getting displaced by quality and competitive advantage. Obviously, cost for the occupier, which is a function of rent and volume. And because you're talking about, all the various strategies with respect to a liberated working environment, I think quality is a huge factor which is coming in, and those developers who want to earn revenue, which is again a function of rent and volume, which are providing higher quality and the competitive advantage on sustainability, ESG, etc., are, I think, sitting on the dais at the moment, and they are, really the drivers. But the change in attitude, which we are in the midst of, which is being driven from, kids to everyone else, I think that is the main factor, which is the change of attitude, which we are, I think, in the midst of at the moment.
So, yeah, I mean, just like to add, what is wrong in asking the question, kitna deti hai? It's a very valid question to ask, and if somebody is facing a challenge in answering that, the problem is with that person. That's my take. Sorry, I'll come to you as to why I'm saying this.
Yeah, we can take it offline, but just to open.
But I'm saying there are parameters to demonstrate that it will benefit. If you're capturing that parameter, communicating that parameter, there is no way you can't justify kitna deti hai. It's 100% out there. Like I said, we can take it offline.
Allow me one comment on that. I have no problem with justifying kitna deti hai. It should not be the only parameter. That's the point. That after all the conversation, everything, the whole trial POC said, at the end of the day, 15% mila, 20% mila.
Sure. No, abhi zyada main problem hai bhook lagi hai.
No. So the question is, if you're going in with saying that it is going to give you 15%, and you're justifying that, then absolutely fine.
We'll take it outside. I think there's one question there. Yeah. If we can pass the mic there, please. Here as well. Okay, we'll take 2, 1 and 2. First the lady. Sorry.
Thank
Next.
you. So I'm talking from an architect's perspective, right? Because you mentioned that we have to design spaces such that, there's a lot of light coming into the workplaces. As an architect, one of the struggles that we have trying to sell a design to a client is to put in open terraces, balconies, because the question that always comes back to us is we're not going to get any money from that. So at the same time, we're talking about wellness, we're talking about getting people out into these green spaces. I just wanted to understand a little bit from you as end users, would you pay for that kind of a space? Because from recent conversations with a lot of end users, they are looking for large terraces in vertical campuses. And from developers, because always the feedback is, I can't sell that, so don't do that.
Coming to the outdoor space, you are asking about the outdoors. You are mentioning about the outdoor space at the
outdoor spaces and in vertical campuses, bringing in large terraces or large outdoor spaces which are not conditioned. Okay. I mean, you spoke about the lobby not being conditioned, but actually bringing that in. Into a vertical campus space.
Recently,
aesthetics, lights, openness, all of it.
I'll talk about that. Recently, a customer has came back to us saying that why are limiting the cafe to closing this? You have a nice outdoor balcony there. Why can't we look at bringing the more people can go and have the fresh air, sit, have the coffee, tea during the lunch hour. I think nowadays we are looking at more at open spaces because people want to get the fresh air.
But would you pay for it?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think today we are seeing more demand for spaces which have attached terraces, right? So two ways to look at it. One, that spaces is higher in demand, so velocity is faster, right? Even if I may not get a premium on that, my velocity of selling that spaces or leasing that space is faster. But we are also seeing people paying premium for that space. Right. We are seeing, and
so why is that not happening very often? Because
so the question is, if they're not willing to pay, are you willing to give it for free?
I mean, the economics.
Depends on what you say free, you know.
I mean,
And just to say, you know, a 50% discount on 200 rupees and 100 rupees with zero discount is same.
No, I think it's
So
a very
depends on how you
dynamic.
define free.
It's a very dynamic situation, but generally, I think there's a flight towards quality. So, you know, there would be people who would be willing, and there is a supply deficit for sure. So, as Shantanu mentioned, that there is only that space which is one balcony out of 10 floors or whatever, you know, so there will be takers and there will be.
I want to add to the point that we are actually picking up flat office spaces and requesting them to remove, you know, some windows so that we can get a lot more, you know,
I
open
think
spaces.
to answer your question, we've had instances, and I said a lot is changing. We've had instances of 2 of the new buildings where we've provided terraces and the customer has agreed to pay a portion, right? Because obviously when you do terraces, part of the FAR, you can do a box and get the complete rental. So you're using a FAR. But you know what? I'll give you an example. I've seen such wastage in design in some of the earlier buildings, and architects never thought about it because every time, you know, the refuge areas are provided, which becomes the areas. So we kind of worked with our architects recently in our new buildings. I said, first, what is a must-do refuge areas? Just position it well so that they can be used as a employee breakout areas without obviously keeping any furniture there, because they can just use it there. So that we've been able to impress upon the architects to use it, which historically refuge areas were getting wasted, the way they had that in placed. But I can tell you, on our 2 of our new buildings, the customers have agreed to pay 25% of the rental for the terraces. So it's changing.
Yeah. One last question, please.
Yeah, taking a point from Shantanu, the ESG being profitable. All of a sudden, from past few years, we get to hear this word sustainability too much now, where everyone want to tag that word sustainability to their product. So to me, it feels like it's more kind of a sellable point to make profit. And in reality, if you really check on the sustainability, whether it's meeting a purpose, I really doubt. I can give you an instant where there are dealers who are selling you the carpets. They say it's a recyclable. Ask them, are they into recycling? They say no. Ask them, are they tied up with a third party who's doing a recycling? The answer is no. So the sustainability part of it, are we just getting it tagged where we want that sustainability to be mentioned somewhere in the paper and on the product? And the real purpose of the sustainability somewhere is missing. So as a real estate corporate, the leaders, what are we doing to meet the real sustainability aspect? Question to the entire panelist.
The due diligence matters a lot.
I think, you know, organizations like ours can't make statements and get away with it, right? I think we have now audits in place, right? If we have to go to an investor, they will have their auditors in place. We have our internal auditors before we face external auditors. Our lenders audit on us. Occupiers audit on us. So I think, you know, making a statement and getting away is definitely not happening. You know, the ends of the bell curves may still be there. I'm not disputing that, but I think, you know, for more, occupiers or the developers who are in the responsible bracket, you know, they can't get away by making such statements.
And also more on the technicality of it, what is being presented as a sustainability, going through in depth and what all it gives as a part of the sustainability. I think that also is one of the key part where we go into technicality and comparisons and detailed evaluation of it, and the discussions with the sustainability, what is going to bring it.
See, I think, you know, these kind of challenges will be there for whenever you're trying to do something very lofty, right? People will have their immediate business profits in their perspective while they are going out on the journey. So you will have these kind of issues in the market across. So while we talked about the social part, you know, sustainability, how it directly impacts on the supply chain, how you are procuring materials, what you're doing in terms of due diligence. I think this is a sort of a, you know, phase of how we move into the eventual objective, right? So I think as much as, so like Viral said, even kids are aware about what to do in terms of very basic level in terms of sustainability. Maybe the word is very strong, but at various aspects, I think it's getting more understood by everyone. So as much more awareness comes in at a school level, at a professional level, at a working level, people are a little more aware. They're taking the right decisions. So if the governance aspect and the leadership is well aligned truly to the ESG, then it is just not reporting out, which is like 1,000 companies in India have to report out a sustainability report. So it's no longer going to be a checklisting item. For a while, it may be, but eventually things catch up with such people, right? So I think we, as long as we have awareness on both sides and the strong intent is there only that we will partner even at a cost of X, Y, and Z, we will make progress.
Yeah, just to sum it up, and thank you to all the panelists for sharing their views. I hope everyone sort of at least had a light moment to what they said, and there were some key takeaways. But just to sort of outlay, I think we are in a transient phase where there is absolutely a lot of beyond chatter about ESG, I think we have to move from the checkbox or the commercial element to the consciousness that Mr. Berry spoke about, and that change of attitude and the change of heart to really do something for the environment, I think is a journey that we are somewhere, each of us as individuals are. And I'd urge everyone to do their bit. Next time I won't come with the paper. Thank you for highlighting that. And thank you very much for taking the time.